everyone, this is Elena of the Witches Box, and I'm here today with another episode of the Witch Booktube, and we're going to be talking today about a book called 6 Ways, Approaches and Entries for Practical Magic by Aidan Wachter. This is the spine, this is the back. I'm going to read really quickly his bio so we can just jump into this book. Aidan Wachter is well known in magical and pagan and occult circles as a highly respected talismanic jeweler. He first encountered the magical arts in 1982 and began serious study in 1987, largely as a method of gaining control over unwanted possession experiences. He is an eclectic practitioner, having worked with various streams of witchcraft, chaos magic, ceremonial magic, folk magic, and freestyle sorcery. He is an animist, and his work is spirit-driven and results-oriented. He counts among his spiritual forebears Austin Osman Spare, Rosaline Norton, Dorji Banzaroff, and Jan Fries. He lives in the mountains of New Mexico with his wife, cat, several dogs, goats, and a few flock of chicken and Muscovy ducks. I will also say that in his writings I discovered that he has studied with Jason Miller. I really love Jason Miller's work. This book, when I first saw it, I actually don't even remember how I came to have this book, which is really strange because I buy all my books. I know what I'm buying, right? But this just kind of appeared in my pile, and it's a little, I don't even know if I want to say it this way, but it feels a little deceptive to see the cover. I like the cover. It's got a really delicious satin feel to it. You know that I'm a tactile girl. It feels good. It's a small book. I think it was like 100 and, okay, from start to end, at the very end of the index, 167 pages. It is not a fast read, however. So I want to get into this because there's not a single page where I don't have notes and scribbles and more notes. I don't know what I was expecting from this book, to be honest with you. I thought it was going to be really super occulty, esoteric, kind of dry in the same way that Frater UD's Practical Sigil Magic book was. I just had that expectation, probably based on the cover. It wasn't that at all. So let me just walk you through it. Aidan, the writer, is a jeweler, and I will link to all of his stuff below because he has a lot of great blog posts on his website, and he also sells his jewelry on his website, or I think there's a link to his shop there. I'll link all that below. He's a witch, and in his intro what he says is that so many people have asked him over and over again, like, how do you do what you do? Like, what do you do? That he decided to put it all together in a book for everyone to read. And he divided it into what he calls his 6 ways, which is just, this is basically a personal procedure manual for his magic, basically. I think that saying that it's a procedure manual for his magic is probably way too dry, but that's in essence what it is. I did read some of the reviews before doing this review video, and someone had criticized that aspect of it, that it feels like it's his own personal magic. Well, he identifies it as exactly that in the very beginning. And here's what I'm going to say. The chapters are pretty small, so I would say maybe the first 4 to 5 chapters, which may end up being only 10 pages. For me, it felt like he was getting at something really, really good, but he kept meandering around it and meandering around it and meandering around it. And for a while I thought, is this book really going to get to any real meat? Like, what he was saying was, it had substance, but I felt like we kept kind of spiraling through it, and then we get to the good meat of the book. I say that to prepare you because I really think this is a book that you should all buy. Straight up. This is a good 4. It's a 4. I'm going to start with the most specific and probably least applicable to most of you. I'm going to speak specifically to those people who are subscribed to the Witches Box or who will end up buying the Healing Altar box, because I've gotten a lot of questions about what kind of healing work or healing spells or healing rituals can I do? He talks about how to use trance work to give yourself and to receive and bring in healing energy. And I thought it was one of the best descriptions of the different levels of trance work that you can do and why you would do trance work. And he walks you through each. What I really would love, and I haven't done this, I told myself when I finish reading this book, I'm going to reach out to this man and I'm going to write him and say, hey, could you do recordings of these? Because sometimes reading yourself into a trance doesn't work. You need to hear it so that you can pull out. All that to say, the 3 exercises, they're actually, I think, more than 3. There's, I think, 5 or 6 that take you through different levels of trance work so that you can travel and talk to different guides, to different spirits, to different beings, to access and pull into you healing energy and working with that. It's really important. It's really powerful work. This is very similar to a book that I reviewed super early on in the Witch Booktube history, which was, I think, the Llewellyn's Little Book of Psychic Skills or Psychic Abilities or Psychic Phenomenon. I'm so sorry, I don't remember the full title, but if you go back, or maybe I'll link it down below, that book was super simple, super straight to the point. It wasn't flowery, it wasn't poetic, it just gave you these really solid practices that if you just stuck to those practices, your spiritual path, your ability to connect with your psychic abilities, your ability to connect with your intuition would, for the rest of your life, continue to grow. It was one of those books. This is like that too. The trance explanations and the trance exercises that he has in this book are powerful and can be the foundation and basis for your entire witchcraft path. Boom. And that's just that section. The other thing that he covered, which blew my mind, we haven't spoken about this at all in the Witches Box world, even though I'm writing about it for the upcoming Protection Magic e-course that'll come out late fallish. If you want an announcement sent to you via email for when that's going to be released, there's going to be a link below for you to sign up for the newsletter announcement for that when that's released. But in that course, I've been writing about working with servitors. And servitors are basically, I'm going to give you a super definition, is creating entities. You're not inviting existing entities, but you are energetically creating entities that do work for you for specific things, for protection, for healing, for procuring items. There is a whole world in the occult systems of how to work with servitors, and I'm talking a little bit about that in the Protection Magic e-course because it can be a very powerful tool for protection. Now, in here, he blew my mind because he tied the work of servitors with sigil magic in a way that I had never heard before, which, I mean, it's probably been out there. I don't know. I don't know if this is just how he works and no one else does this, but it tied it together in a way that just clicked something so profound in my mind. It brought together two systems or forms of magic that just illuminated, your synapses all of a sudden go, whoa! That's what I felt. Powerful stuff. A really powerful way, I think, of working with sigils. I had not thought about it that way before. I think that somewhere in here, I'm trying to find the quote, he doesn't believe that servitors are necessarily created. He really believes that servitors are spirits that answer the call for the job. It's almost like you put out a wanted ad for I need someone or an entity to do these things for me, and that entity fills that job position because it's coming into the description that you set out, the intentional container that you've set out there. And then he goes on to talk about when you get into a magical spiritual relationship this way, there's etiquette, right, to how you interact. There's etiquette to how you ask for what you need. There's etiquette for how you say thank you. I loved it. It was so powerful and so illuminating for me. It was definitely going deeper. He may not have intended to do this, but for me, what it felt like was that he was just spiraling in. So we circled and circled in the beginning of the book, and then it just went deeper and deeper and deeper, even though the things that he's talking about are fairly basic, but not. So you get a really deep idea of how to do each of these things. I was so impressed with this book. I have to tell you, it's another book that I'm probably going to read again, particularly the chapters on trance work, because they were really powerful. And I don't know that I would have permission to do this. This is why I really do need to reach out to him. I think that it would serve his readers, it would serve me, it would probably serve a lot of you if these were guided meditations that were recorded so that you can then do that work for yourself. Loved it. I love that in the beginning, and I think throughout certain portions of the book, he definitely he says things like, this is how I do it. I have taken from this person, I have taken from that person, I have learned from this school, and over time, he has kind of formed it to a way that works specifically for him. So he's like, I'm sharing how I do it, but I also then encourage you to take these things and work with it to see how it fits you. This is the basis for what I think is deeply intuitive and deeply connected magic for yourself. Ultimately, I really believe that that's the goal, that it has to be something that is truly deeply informed by what your inner knowing is. And he encourages that, which I really appreciate. The other thing that I really appreciate about this book is that there are a lot of footnotes that offer a lot of added information from what he's writing below or above. And several times he gives credit to, hey, I learned this format or this outline structure from Jason Miller. Thank you to Daniela Port for this meditation. Thank you to, and there were a couple of others, and I really appreciated both that he gives credit, but also it's just such a reflection, right, of how we all weave together our spiritual path by learning from one another, by learning by, from our teachers. We weave all of these different teachings together in a way that suits us best. I really, I was so surprised. I didn't really even know what to expect. Get the book. Particularly if you're interested in doing trans magic, particularly if you're interested in working with different servitor spirit entities, particularly if you want to take your sigil work into a different, deeper direction, because he gives such a different way of using it. I really love it. Loved it. I will read this. This is something that I speak to a lot. I think that it's important. The more we know ourselves, the more we excavate our psychological terrain, the more powerful we are as witches. The more powerful, the more empowered we are as human beings in the world, period. And this is it sort of speaks to this, but I'm just going to read this quote because it's underlined and I have a little star that says share. This is not all psychological, though our psychology is a huge piece of it. It is using our psychology in conjunction with our sorcery to bring about a change of state. It is realizing that past events, lessons learned, and primarily damages endured have all worked to set us on a track like a train. If we do not choose to become aware of the tracks and decide to leave them, however difficult or uncomfortable that is, we will go where they lead, which is usually pretty much where we are now, carried out forever. So this is talking about how in order for us to change the course of our lives, we have to look at our internal terrain. We have to understand what those tracks are that have been laid for us, that we follow unconsciously in our lives. And once we understand those tracks, then we can make empowered decisions about how to shift direction. Great stuff. I liked his voice. I liked the writing. So it's not necessarily that it's hard to read, but it's meaty. There's a lot here. And so it wasn't an easy read as like a 160-page novel. It might be super easy. You read it like in an hour or two. I really lingered a lot because I really found once he wove us in, the trance work, the sigil work, working with the entities that protect the threshold spaces or the liminal spaces where we transition from one to the other, and how he explains that those beings, that energetic exists at every doorway. So every doorway to your home is a liminal space, a doorway from outside to inside, a doorway from your kitchen to your living room. Those are liminal spaces where you're in between one and the other and you're crossing over. And that there are spiritual entities there. And if you don't tell them what you want from them, they don't know what you want and they won't do anything. But if you continue to establish relationship with them by thanking them, thank you for keeping the door closed. Thank you for keeping this in and that out. You begin to establish an energetic connection so that you can then ask them, hey, this is what I want you to protect from. This is what I want you to keep a boundary to. And then that relationship continues to grow. And you can do that with all sorts of different parts of your home, all sorts of different talismans or sigils or so much more. I just loved the perspective. Get the book. I'll link to it below. I thought it was fantastic. If you are interested, people who have been asking me about doing healing work, I think that the trance work and the energy work outlined in this book are fantastic for doing your own personal healing work. I'll link to his website. There's a lot of great blog articles to read there. If you've read this book, if you know this person, I would love to hear what your thoughts are. If you've actually worked with servitors before, if you worked with them in conjunction with sigil work, I would love to hear from you as well, because it was a whole new doorway for me that blew me away. And I'm really excited to kind of play with that energy. I had never, as I said before, I had never really considered that servitors were actual entities that already existed. I really come from the school of you create them. And I'm not sure how I feel about it, but I'm really interested and excited to just experiment with it and try it out and see what's out there. And please subscribe if you have not subscribed yet. And also click that bell down below and that subscribe button. What that will do is notify you whenever something new is up here on the channel. We are going to be launching a book subscription very soon. And if you want to be on the announcement list for that as well, that link will be down below. So click if you want the Protection e-course, if you want information on that, click that one. And if you want information on the book subscription, click that other link as well. And those two announcement lists will not be like spamming your box infinitely. It will be maybe 1 to 3 max announcements like, hey, this is going to launch soon. Hey, this is going to launch soon. Hey, if you want to be part of this, this is where you go. That's what you're going to get. That's it. I will talk to you again soon, I am sure. As always, take care. Take care of yourself.